we have officially gotten a glimpse at our first character design from the King of the Hill reboot/sequel series, and it is none other than Bobby Hill himself. Voice actress Grey Delisle shared this photo of a portrait of Bobby as a chef, seemingly from a cast and crew event for the upcoming revival. There's also a pretty long chef's bio for Bobby, and sort of a strange look at what seems to be an older version of Nancy Gribble. On top of this, the fact that Grey Delisle has seemingly been cast in the revival herself is also news, so there is plenty to speculate about. Let's just dive into it.
Yep.
Okay, so as you may know, I previously made a video about adult Bobby Hill after Pamela Adlin's comments about the upcoming reboot, which confirmed that Bobby would be 21 years old and that he'd be a fusion chef working in Dallas. I sort of thought that at this young age, it would be unlikely that Bobby was already a full-on chef of a restaurant, but it looks like this is confirmation that he is in fact the main chef at this restaurant. It might even be his restaurant. This framed portrait of Bobby is basically emulating an about the chef bio you might find in a nicer restaurant, and though it's filled with a lot of references to stuff from the original run, it's also got some pretty great morsels of info for us to speculate about, including reasons why Hank might not approve of Bobby's chosen career path. So let's dive into it. I'm really excited to talk about this. About the chef. Chef Bobby Hill has loved food his whole life, from weeknights around the dinner table eating his mom's spaghetti and meatballs, to overindulging in lutefisk at church potlucks, to celebrations with family and friends at Luli's cafeteria. Food and the people it's enjoyed with are the foundation for his best memories. So this is all of those aforementioned original series reference points, the first being from the episode Peggy's Fanfare. It's actually really funny to me that Bobby would want his mom's spaghetti and meatballs to be mentioned in his bio.
Well, spaghetti is a lot like spaghetti.
I would actually not be shocked if this was something that Peggy heavily influenced in Bobby including in the bio. They also reference the episode Revenge of the Lutefisk, where Bobby ate all of Reverend Stroop's dish that she brought for the church congregation, which then led to the church being burned down in a big roundabout way. And then there's also just a general reference to Luli's cafeteria, a common location seen in a handful of episodes of King of the Hill, which is based on the actual restaurant Luby's. Okay, this next part though, this is the juicy stuff. In fact, his career as a robota chef was inspired by his most cherished memory of all, weekends spent grilling with his dad. Okay, this is good stuff. Obviously, the original series literally ended with Hank and Bobby grilling together, and this implies that they continued to grill together through Bobby's teenage years, which really makes this last line of the original run hit even better all these years later.
Well, Dad, it looks like this is the last one.
Oh, you're just getting started, Bobby. You'll be grilling your whole life.
Just like you.
However, the more interesting thing here is, alongside the invocation of that time he spent grilling with his dad, is the type of cooking his fusion restaurant will be doing, robota. Now get this, robota is a Japanese method of cooking, not unlike barbecue, where food is cooked over hot charcoal.
You brought charcoal into our house!
That's right, Bobby has become a renowned chef at an unbelievably young age, something his father would be incredibly proud of. However, he's likely going to be cooking his meals with charcoal. This is genius. What an amazing way to cause conflict between Hank and Bobby's ways of life. Hank is such a good dad, he certainly has to be proud of Bobby, but the use of charcoal instead of propane has to feel like a betrayal. Unless they're considering going a route where Bobby insists on using propane instead of the traditional charcoal for the robota style cooking, it seems like Hank is going to have incredibly frustrating mixed emotions over his son's incredible success. And I think the other aspects of the cuisine will affect this as well. But before we get there, the bio continues. A self-taught chef and one of the youngest contestants on King of the Grill, Chef Hill believes good food can solve any problem. Okay, so we also now know that one of the ways Bobby gained notoriety as a young chef was through something called King of the Grill, which I imagine is some kind of a Master Chef style competition series. And it makes a ton of sense that this is how Bobby might have stood out in the cooking world. Aside from his impressive cooking skills, Bobby is very much a performer. His two biggest interests in life were comedy and cooking. And so I expect that his personality as a performer really shined through on television, and this likely gained him attention and a following. We actually also know the title of the first two episodes of the upcoming season thanks to an IMDb listing, the first one being Return of the King. Obviously this is metatextual, but maybe it's also referencing Bobby returning to cooking through his restaurant since he was previously the King of the Grill. The second episode is called The Beer Story. Sounds like King of the Hill. Hill. It will be interesting to see if Bobby still has any of his desires to be a comedian or a performer outside of his work as a chef, especially having earned his chef's hat at such a young age. Sometimes success at a younger age can make you feel sort of pigeonholed into that career, and I really hope we see some of his comedic interests shine through that. Also, I think this probably means we'll see some flashbacks to the King of the Grill competition, which means we'll see younger Bobby at least a little bit. Okay, back to the bio. He draws on the influences of his childhood by combining classic Texas dishes with flavors from around the world. With Ribotta Shane, Chef Hill hopes to honor the art of Japanese ribotta and the German heritage of the Texas Hill Country while pushing culinary boundaries through his innovative fusion dishes. Okay, so this is actually something I speculated about in my last video when we learned that Bobby would be a fusion chef, but I think that this so perfectly illustrates sort of the most important core aspect of King of the Hill, and that is the struggle and process of Hank and Bobby trying to understand one another, particularly how Hank initially struggles to see Bobby's perspectives until he finds some kind of underlying integrity in whatever it is he failed to understand initially. This is like the age-old formula for a good Hank and Bobby episode, and the idea that Bobby is fusing some of Hank's most beloved types of meals, classic Texas dishes, with flavors from around the world, this really couldn't be more perfect in terms of challenging Hank's worldview. It's quite literally Bobby fusing things Hank loves with things Hank doesn't really understand, things Hank might struggle to understand, which literally describes Bobby. He is someone that Hank loves who does things that Hank struggles to get. Honestly, I cannot overstate how impressed I am with the writers for just this general concept. It grows perfectly from where the series left off and so beautifully encapsulates the most important themes of the original series. And that is the end of the bio, and even though this was a prop for the cast/crew party, it definitely seems to contain important in-universe info and feels like what we might see on the wall of Bobby's restaurant. Okay, so let's also take a quick look at this weird negative character sheet for what I believe is an older character model for Nancy Gribble. If you mess with the color, it's a bit clearer, but it's pretty good looking design, and I'm really excited to see what the rest of the cast looks like. And that brings us to the person behind this entire image release or leak or whatever it is, Grey Delisle. Grey is an amazing voice actress, maybe most famously known for Vicky from Fairly OddParents, Azula in Avatar: The Last Airbender, and literally countless other credits. But Grey did not have a regular role in the original King of the Hill, meaning that she is likely playing a new character in the revival, so I have a couple thoughts on what this could be. One, Pamela Adlon mentioned in her previous comments about the revival that Bobby would be navigating a relationship. I think it is definitely possible that Grey is playing Bobby's new partner. Bobby's restaurant is in Dallas, so maybe this is more of a city girl than Hank and Peggy are used to, which could cause some friction within the Hill family. I think that's a pretty good bet and a pretty good fit for the ideas we might see in King of the Hill as a revival. Two, maybe Luann's daughter, Gracie. We know the series is aging up the characters about 9 years, and it remains to be seen what they'll be doing with Luann and Lucky, whose voice actors Brittany Murphy and Tom Petty have sadly passed since the show ended. I really hope that regardless of what they choose with those characters, that their daughter Gracie will be a part of the show. If they choose not to recast Luann or Lucky and write them out of the show somehow, Gracie could give those characters some kind of a presence in the series. I maintain that if they write out Luann and Lucky, having Gracie move in with the Hills would be a great parallel back to the original pilot where Luann moves in with the Hills. I also think adding an additional generational divide with a generation underneath Bobby would really lend to the core ideas and themes that King of the Hill explores. Put Bobby in Hank's shoes a bit, where he fails to understand the generation coming up behind him, and maybe they could also include Hank's younger brother, Good Hank, to reinforce this even more. 3, maybe Grey is playing Luann herself. Delisle is an incredibly versatile voice actress. I'm not sure if she's ever done a performance quite like Luann before, but if they opted to recast the role after Murphy, a pro with a massive vocal range like Grey would be a really good option. I think that also begs the additional question of retire or recast. We mentioned Luann and Lucky, but Dale Gribble's voice actor Johnny Hardwick also passed away recently, after allegedly recording a few episodes of the revival. While it hurts to think about some of these performers being replaced, I do think the more I think about it, the more I'd maybe like to see replacement VAs come in, especially since they started writing the revival expecting to be able to use Dale. He is such a major part of the show and a huge source for comedy. I certainly would prefer to see a recast to them using like AI to recreate any of these voices, like so many of you seem to be suggesting in my comments. For the love of God, stop suggesting that. We deserve better. Hire a real actor. And then the last question that is still unanswered is, when the heck is this revival going to air? Previously, the rumor was that it would be early 2025. I think 2025 is still likely. This event seems to have been some kind of celebration or wrap party for the cast and crew of the new series. Pamela Adlon previously said that they were in the middle of the second season of the revival. Before you comment about it, yes, animation takes a long time. They're often deep into the second season before the first is finished animating. I think with them likely getting close to wrapping up production on the second set of 10 episodes, it can't be too long before those first 10 air. My best guess is like spring 2025, maybe early summer. I could see them rolling King of the Hill into Futurama for a sort of long summer of adult animation over on Hulu. Hulu is definitely trying to be the sort of primary destination for adult animated comedies. It will be really interesting to see if this revival does well enough for them to order 20 more episodes like they did with Futurama, but I have to admit, I'm actually a little more excited for this revival than I was Futurama, primarily because they're actually aging up and moving the characters into a new stage of life. It makes it feel like a real sequel and doesn't eliminate the excellent ending of the original series. But we will see. Stay tuned, because I do expect that more info about the King of the Hill reboot will probably be dropping like any minute now. I hope. Peace.
I stay mellow watching Johnny Two Cellos. He talks cartoons, he's a really cool fellow. He keeps you posted on adult cartoons. If that's what you're into, then grab a spoon and a very big bowl of your favorite cereal. Feels like Saturday morning cartoon material. Johnny Two Cellos, watch him on YouTube. Now enjoy this groove and bust a move.